everybody, and welcome to another edition of the TennisONE podcast here in the TennisONE app and on Spotify. We have a great show for you today, a special guest joining us. We're going to get into some Indian Wells chat, and I'll pass it over to you, Patrick, to get us going.
Yeah, thanks, Madison. Before we get into Indian Wells, we got to talk about Blair Henley, the tennis insider. This is super excited to have you on here, Blair. So thanks for joining us. I think before we ask anything about your career, we gotta ask for a hedgehog update. We saw that you have a hedgehog now, right?
I am indeed. I would say I'm the proud owner, but I don't know that I'm the proud owner. I am the owner of a hedgehog who is still alive almost 3 months later, which is a personal victory. Glitter, the hedgehog, is doing great. Far more high maintenance than I went in thinking she would be, which is a rite of passage, I feel like, when you get your first family pet. But thank you for checking. Glitter is doing fantastically well and batting 1,000 in her match predictions. She predicted the winner of the Dallas Open. So should you guys need another segment for TennisONE hedgehog predictions, you just let me know.
Yeah, I actually saw that video. Somehow I missed it when I was down because we officially met down in Dallas, right?
Yep.
And I just saw that video the other day, actually, when Madison told me you had a hedgehog, and I was like, oh, I got to check this out. And then I saw the video of him picking Wu being those. Yeah, batting 1,000. So maybe we'll have to get his takes on some of the Indian Wells predictions later.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I found out though that Glitter generally leans right. So whoever I think the winner is going to be, I'm just going to put their sign on the right side. I have a right leaning hedgehog.
That's hilarious.
There we go. Did your daughters collectively decide on the name Glitter, or did you kind of like have to, one got to pick, or how did that happen?
I gave some suggestions that I didn't think would be offensive or obnoxious to repeat over the 3 to 4 year lifespan of said hedgehog. So gave some suggestions. They went with Glitter. Sparkle was a close second.
Okay.
There you go.
It's perfect.
Love it. Well, yeah. So Blair, thanks again for joining us. You're married with 2 daughters and a hedgehog, but you're a tennis insider now. And I just wanted to kind of give our listeners a little picture of your career basically in tennis, because if people are just now finding out about you, I think they think of you as like a tennis insider, right? You're at these tournaments, you're writing, you're on court, doing all kinds of stuff. But actually you played college tennis and were teaching tennis for a long time, right?
That is correct. I appreciate you calling me a tennis insider. I don't know that anyone's actually used that term to describe me, at least to me, before. So thanks. Makes me feel special. I don't know that I have a ton of inside info, but I have been very thankful, and it sounds corny, but very blessed to be able to work in the sport that I love and get to know a lot of the people who work in tennis, the players, the storylines, the things that make people tick. The relationships are by far the most fun part of my job. It's getting to know people as humans. Obviously, there's the coworker relationship, but then also getting to know, again, the people behind the scenes as well as the players, just as humans. It's a really nice bonus and definitely the thing that I like the most about what I do. But yeah, started off really was around tennis courts from a very young age. My dad's a tennis pro, still loves what he does as the director of tennis down at a club in Florida. And I was lucky enough to just get to hang at the courts. I'm guessing all of the pros that worked for him were super annoyed to have me around, because I was always like, can we go out, like just mini tennis for like 15 minutes? I probably drew, because they're all exhausted. It's like middle of the summer, they're teaching 9 hours a day, and somebody gets a cancellation, and I'm like, I'll fill in. So I had, for a kid that loved tennis, it was the dream upbringing. And yeah, tennis was my sport. Went and played college tennis at Rice University in Houston, and taught for a little bit after that. I wasn't totally sure which direction I wanted to go in my life, and very thankful that the doors that opened did open. My husband played baseball, and we were traveling around. Really, all of our belongings could fit in our car, and that's when I started writing, because it really is. I mean, at Rice, I had so many friends who went off and got investment banking jobs. I was an economics major, so that was a path that I could have gone into and just didn't feel like it was for me. And then when you look at the other side of things, thinking like, can you make a career as a tennis writer? That is a tough industry, the journalism industry in general. And then you shrink it by 1,000 when you're focusing on tennis. So I think being sort of separated from being able to have maybe a normal career, because I was with Tyler and we were on the road and moving around every few months, that gave me sort of the confidence to say, hey, listen, it's now or never. So I started as a writer, and one thing led to another. And here we are in 2023, and I'm doing a variety of things, but very thankful to be where I am.
It's interesting that you say you love tennis like from the get-go, because my dad also is a teaching pro and a director.
No way. Love it.
I grew up going to the courts as well, but I have to say, when I was a kid, I didn't really like it that much because none of my friends played. I'm from like a small town in Illinois. Everybody's playing football and baseball and whatever else. So I was like going with my parents to tournaments on weekends and stuff. So I didn't love it at first. I'm glad I did it, but it sounds like you liked it from the get-go.
Yeah, I did. That's interesting. I definitely think though, Patrick, I mean, you made your own way. You didn't go the trendy route.
True. Yeah. It looks way cooler now looking back, but at the time, I was like,
at the time, yeah, I hear you.
So, well, yeah. So then you played college tennis, right? And you won the first college conference championship for your team, right, in school history, which is super impressive because I know how hard winning a conference championship is. So just kind of before we get into, your professional career right now, what was that moment like for you?
It was so neat. I mean, college tennis, gosh, I could go on forever. If somebody has a chance to play college sports, even if, say your goal is Division I and it doesn't totally pan out for you, Division II, Division III, there are so many other amazing opportunities to play college sports where you still are going to get that feeling of playing alongside a team and being bonded really for life with these people. And that, I still have a group text with my former teammates, and we stay updated on each other's lives. We try to have a reunion every couple of years. But again, it really does. I think there is a bond when you achieve something like that, or when you're sort of in the trenches together, and you're working hard and you have the bad days and you have the good days and you finish. And, for us, it was nice. We were able to do something for the first time at Rice. So that was a nice bonus. But I think overall, it just was such an incredible experience playing college tennis, having that sort of built-in friend group. Everybody sort of understood one another. We still have, stories, the stories that happen on road trips and with coaches and things that coaches say. And man, college coaches, by the way, props to them. That is one of the hardest jobs. But again, that's another thing. I'm still in touch with Elizabeth Schmidt, who's the head coach now. She was my assistant coach my last 2 years. So I know, again, it sounds cheesy, but the relationships, I think, are the thing that you take away, because you got to be a part of something really neat with that group of people.
Definitely. What is that success feeling, achieving that type of thing with some other people versus maybe a professional success that you have now, or like when you did the Tennis Now instructional videos, which if people don't know, like those got combined millions of views. Those videos, so.
Still, guys, the most shocking development of my professional career. The backstory there is we just needed some instruction content on Tennis Now when I was working for that website, and I was like, I think I can do it. I did not even really look at them before they went on the internet. And lesson learned, let's make sure we maybe do some editing. It worked out. I think it's funny. Still to this day, I get approached at tournaments the most often regarding those instruction videos. And that warms my heart, because if somebody took one little thing that I said and was able to apply that on the tennis court, that's the best thing ever. And, when I was teaching, as much as I don't know that I loved teaching as much as my dad does, for instance, he still to this day, never heard him complain about his job one day ever, genuinely loves it. I liked it, but that feeling of being able to help someone enjoy the sport that I love, there's nothing more rewarding. So
I was watching the one-handed backhand Federer video because I have a two-hander and I would like to have a one. So
it's never too late, Patrick.
Yeah, no, I got to
start now.
Playing tennis about being cool, so I need to have the one-y, I think.
There you go. There you go.
So, okay, you do the Tennis Now videos. You were teaching. Where was the jump from teaching to getting into writing and covering tennis? And what was the hardest part about that? Because I think it takes a little bit of courage. I feel like, you know, we're Madison and I work at a startup and we're kind of getting experience in a lot of different areas. And like doing this podcast we started this year.
Yeah.
And, you know, you kind of wonder like, am I going to be good at this? And you got to get the reps, I guess, you know. But what was hard for you about it?
Well, you guys are getting the reps. I think what I would say is just finding a way to get the experience. I mean, and you guys have done it. I've seen you, you know, Madison, I've seen your stuff, and you are getting the reps and you're getting the experience and you're building some of those relationships that again in tennis are so helpful, because if you know so-and-so who might know so-and-so who might have access to so-and-so player after they get a big, you know, they win their first 250 or whatever it is. You just never know how those connections are going to benefit you down the road. I definitely had no idea what I was doing. As I said, I was an economics major. I had, you know, I didn't know journalism ethics. I didn't know any of the basic things that I felt like I should probably know going into the writing side of things. And I definitely didn't answer your previous question when you were asking about doing things individually. It is kind of a lonely road, and just sort of putting yourself out there. You get a lot of no's. I've had to develop a thick skin, but you just can't stop putting out the feelers. I just feel like you're never going to know unless you ask. And the worst somebody that can say is no, or they just ghost you. That also happens.
That happens.
They don't
lot
respond.
in startup life. Believe it or not.
You get the no responses, but you don't know if you're going to get the no response until you ask. So that's just always been my personal motto when it comes to figuring out life as a freelancer in the tennis industry. I was thankful to get some of those writing reps for worldtennismagazine.com back when Tyler was playing baseball. Again, because like I said, I had it's not like I had bylines that I was writing in college because I was in a journalism program. So being able to get some bylines through that, just learn how to better write for tennis. And then I got the job at Tennis Now when Tyler finished baseball and had to go back to Rice to finish. And I was thinking like, you know, what do I do now? And Tennis Now sort of found me in a lot of ways. And that website, again, there was freedom in being sort of a smaller startup-y type outlet. And I think that's something that hopefully you guys have seen too, is you can come up with an idea, and as long as you can figure out how to fund it, as long as you can figure out the logistics, a lot of times, again, depending on who's driving the ship, you can make it happen. And I think just having that creative mindset and being like, have we tried this? Have we tried this? You know, the proverbial throwing things and seeing what sticks. So there was a huge benefit, even though we didn't have much of an infrastructure at Tennis Now, there was a benefit in the fact that we did have a YouTube channel with essentially no rules. I could build that however I wanted. I could get experience in front of the camera. I don't know, some people have probably heard this story before, but I applied for credentials at Wimbledon thinking no shot they're going to accept little old Tennis Now, and me as a writer, but they did. And then I approached my boss and said, hey, I applied for credentials and they said, yes, is there any chance we can make this work? And to his credit, he said, I think we can. And then I'm in a media room with a lot of other far more experienced media people. And I got to meet all of those people. And then you maybe do that at another a tournament. I went to the Australian Open as well. And so again, you've just got to keep throwing things out there, whether that is creative ideas within your own place that you're working, or what you're reaching outside of your little network and just seeing if somebody responds to an email. It sounds corny. It just is very easy to get discouraged, especially when you're doing it all for yourself and you're like, and also especially if you have a job that can, pay the basic bills. You're like, it's really much easier just to enjoy this and sit here and do my very clear-cut job every day. But I just think tennis has so much room to grow in terms of how it's covered still. So much room. I mean, this could be a whole other podcast in itself.
Don't worry, we might ask you a question about that later when we talk about Indian Wells. But
yeah, I feel like unfortunately tennis is and COVID drove it a little bit, just going in the opposite direction in terms of access and the access the players are willing to give. And it's tough. There is a lot demanded of them, but I was doing some research on the WTA 50th anniversary last year, and I was reading this one snippet where it was talking about Billie Jean King, at the very beginning of the WTA's formation, when she was finishing press at 9-10 at night, and then waking up at 6 a.m. to do radio interviews the next day, because promoting the tour was so significantly on her shoulders, and also maybe to a slightly lesser extent, the rest of that group that decided, okay, we're going to break away and we're going to do our own thing. I don't think that that's reasonable given the demands of the tour today. I do wish that with agents and players, there was maybe more of a mentality of, hey, the more that people can see us as people, and the more access we give to an extent, the more engaging our sport becomes. And I think we've seen that with the Full Swing, the golf Netflix show. There's just a little bit more, the guard is down just a little bit more. And I think just a marginal gain on that side of things can really make a big difference in how the sport is portrayed. So anyway, I just took you on, we went down a rabbit hole there, but I just, I think that there's a lot of room in tennis to do bigger and better things. And if you are a creative person and you have ideas, I think eventually somebody will listen. That's my pep talk for today, guys. You got this.
Love it.
So good. It's funny because I said the exact same thing to Madison this morning, because we both watched Breakpoint to talk about it on our podcast. But I said, did you watch, the golf show Full Swing? Because I did think that show got more into the characters. It showed people that weren't in the top 20, like the Joel Damon episode was maybe the best one for me,
Yes. Yes. And there are so many stories like that, but tennis is really myopic, I think, in the, and I think the big three have spoiled us, right? Because they have sucked so much of the attention for so long, and they've been at the very top. And so it's easy for us to get conditioned thinking, well, the only exciting things are happening at the top. But that is one of the things I love about working 250s, is you get to see Wu Yibing come in at ranked 97 in the world, win the tournament. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just watched a star being born. But at least in the States, I don't think people know much about said star. So great. I get the chance to explain to people why they should love this kid, why he's going to be so good, what his background is, what his backstory is. Tennis just has to do a better job of that, in my humble opinion.
The 250, seeing Rybakov get his first,
yes.
Those are always
so fun.
There are so many reasons to care about more people than are in the top 10 and top 20. Yeah. So many awesome stories.
So many cool stories.
The resources are just not only in terms of actual prize money, but also other, media resources are just allotted very heavily at the top. So.
No. Well, speaking of Dallas, I mentioned earlier that, that's where we kind of officially met, but I got to, I've seen you around obviously on social media and at tournaments, but I really got to see your work ethic, frankly. And we had Mike Cation on during the Dallas Open on our podcast. And I think Madison, I kind of think of you two in a similar vein, right? Because I think you guys work so hard. I actually saw that he sent you all his college notes, right? In a box.
Guys, the nicest thing I've ever received in the mail. No joke. I had no idea he was going to do that, but I haven't signed anything yet, so nothing's official, but most likely I'm going to be doing some college work in the month of May. And whether or not those people who are in that box are going to be there, we don't know yet, but there's so much props to the people who cover college tennis, Crack Rackets, those guys. It's to get to know players when there are very few resources to get to know about them. Is not only do you have to do the work, but you have to dig for the facts. It's not like the facts are always easy to come by. So yes, Mike Cation, one of the hardest workers I know, and he has put in the time and the grind over the years. And I'm so glad to see him, seeing some of the fruits of his labor. But it's also nice when those people who are having success are fantastic people. And Mike is one of those, because that was like the greatest care package. It's just a box full of index cards. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the nicest thing ever. Yeah. Because it's going to be so helpful just in some of the blanks of these people that I'm going to be getting to know in the next couple of months. So shout out to Mike Cation. Yes.
Yeah, I think it really is on individuals a lot of times to really drive promoting the sport, especially at, the college, the challenger, the 250 level. I mean, just watching you in Dallas, I could see, you're up at the top of the stands watching center court. You're obviously thinking, what am I going to ask this player? Who, depending on who wins. So you got to have notes for both. You're then in between matches going to the media room, like giving notes to some of the writers on, who are local and maybe not tennis specific people. And you're like, here's what we need to say. And, and you're doing your own social media and you're promoting the tournament on there. And it's like, man, you're just running around.
You know what? I will say, I feel like the ultimate luxury is to have a job where you're only doing one job. That is, having worked in tennis, and I think anybody in tennis will say the same. It so rarely happens, but every once in a while I get a job and I'm like, wait, I just have to do this one job. And it's like, what is this like? What am I doing with myself? I'm only waiting to do this one job. Well, I do wish, listen, in a perfect world, you might be able to focus more on your actual area of concentration and feel like, you're not getting a B+ in all those things, but you're getting an A+ in a couple of things versus a B+ in several things. In a perfect world, that would be great. That's not the reality in tennis. It's not the reality of somebody who wasn't a former top 100 player. It just is a fact. And so there are things that I have to do to sort of try to make my own place in the sport. Having, again, I play tennis at a pretty high level, but not having on paper what people automatically consider to be expert knowledge. You really do have to perhaps look for other opportunities, maybe work a little harder in terms of finding other inroads. So I've accepted that, and gosh, if only I were a little bit better, guys, it might have been easier for me. But no, it definitely. I do think it helps you get to know more areas of the sport. It's the old, the starting in the mailroom and working your way up. It's kind of the same concept, because I have had to sort of figure it out, and I haven't had a name to come in on and rely on. It's probably made me better at my job. I've certainly learned more. I've probably met more people from that. So again, I appreciate that aspect of it for sure. There is definitely, the hope that maybe one day I can have a specific job title where that's all I'm doing, and I can actually focus on being really great at that one thing. In the meantime, though, happy to, make sure I'm always brushing up on my social media and writing for the programs and whatever it is. Happy to help. And, it's part of being in the tennis world. And I've met a lot of great people through that.
Well, I would say you're almost between like a Chris Fowler and name your former pro tennis player who commentates. You're like,
that is the biggest compliment ever.
Like,
so I will
the professional part of it, but you also are a really good player. Now, did you win like 18 Grand Slams? No, but like tennis has so many levels, and I mean, like I play D2, and there's people that can whoop my ass, and there's people that, it's just tennis. But one more question for you before we get into talking about Indian Wells, which Madison's gonna grill you on.
Yeah.
The nature of working in the sport the way you do, you work in stints, right? And for that week of the tournament or 10 days or whatever it is, it's like insane hours. And obviously we mentioned that you have 2 daughters, a husband, a hedgehog. What kind of makes it worth for you? Because you have to travel a lot, right? And then you're gone for sort of long stretches. And I think Madison and I and Laura at TennisONE, we starting to experience that when we go to tournaments and there for, 10 days and, we're doing 2 tournaments back to back. And then it's like, so.
Yeah, it's a grind. It's for sure a grind. I definitely have to think hard about the things that I say yes to, and the competitive side of for the competitive side of me. That's hard because I want to be the best that I can be. I want to get the absolute most out of the abilities that I have. And I just can't say yes to everything. And this is not to say I have job offers like coming out the wazoo. That I don't want to phrase it that way, but there are definitely, I have to really think hard about the scheduling aspect of things. I often say that I could travel the same number of days, but if it were for smaller snippets, it would be a complete game changer. I'll be gone for 12 days for Indian Wells, and it's just hard. It's hard to be gone that long, especially when there are kids in the picture. But we talk about it. I talk about it with them, where we make sure we have conversations. They're 6 and 7, so they're to the point where they can sort of understand it. And I say, I know this is hard, but because I do this, I can also be home when I'm home. I can go on the class field trip like I did this week to the Fort Worth Science Museum. There are things that I am able to do because I work while I'm away. I can do more with them while I'm home. And so to this point, I think the benefits of that have outweighed the challenges, but it's one of those things where you just have to kind of keep your finger on the pulse at all times, because maybe there's going to come a time when there are more extracurriculars, or who knows, one of them struggling in school, whatever it is, where possibly that's not going to be the case, where me leaving for those periods of time is not going to be still a net positive, both for me and for them. So, constantly checking in. Adulting is hard.
It is hard.
It's really what it boils down to. Adulting is just hard. But for now, thankful for the tournaments that I do get to go to, and know I need to make the most of them while I'm there.
Well, Indian Wells is one of them. It's coming up next week. We're going to talk about that next. We're just going to take a quick break.
We'll get back to Blair in a second, but we first wanted to congratulate the class of 2023 for the International Tennis Hall of Fame, as they welcomed wheelchair tennis greats Esther Verheer and Rick Draney.
You can find the videos of their on-court introduction from Rotterdam on the International Tennis Hall of Fame Instagram. That's at Tennis Hall of Fame. So go check out their introductions and the videos. They have all kinds of behind the scenes stuff, interviews, all of that on Hall of Fame social.
Okay, Blair, you mentioned you're going to be in Indian Wells for 12 days. Can you just kind of talk us through, your first opportunity getting to work this 5th Grand Slam, and just kind of what your day-to-day looks like for those who don't know what you do?
I think my first year in Indian Wells was 2017. I guess that's when you're getting old, when you're like, I'm not really sure. It was back way back when. No, so I was thankful to get a chance to do that. Again, like I said, I think in 2017, I started on Stadium 4. I am now on Stadium 3. It's the party court at Indian Wells. If people are not aware, come visit where the party goes down. And I actually really enjoy that court. I think it's like a 4,000 seat stadium, a little bit on the smaller side, but really fun atmosphere. Again, it is sort of feeling of being out amongst the people. The big stadiums are great. That is a special feel unto itself, but especially early in the tournament when people are buying grounds passes, and I just love the feel of a Stadium 3. To me, it's just perfect. And you get, it's funny. Last year we got Carlos Alcaraz out there a couple of times.
Crazy.
Which is so funny. I had a friend who happened to be on that court, and he took a picture of me interviewing Carlitos. And after the tournament, I think it might've been after Miami, he sent it to me, and he was like, sending you this because he'll never be on Stadium 3 again. And I was like, you are correct. So to answer your question about my job description, really anytime I MC, whether it's Stadium 3 at Indian Wells or, you know, doing Armstrong at the US Open, or sometimes I get to do Ash, it is, for the most part, writing bios for the players, introducing them onto the court. I do a lot of sort of stage managery stuff too. So if the players arrive early and it's not 11:01 yet, which is when we get to walk them onto the court, I get to give them the great news that, guys, sorry, you have 1 minute to wait here in the corner with all these people swarming around you, looking at you like an animal in a cage. But yeah, so there's the stage manager aspect of things. I introduce them out onto the court when I get the cue that it's time to go. While they're warming up, I read their bios, which I generally, for the most part, write myself. And then any sort of in-stadium promotions, that falls on me, or PA reads, all those things, voice of God stuff. And then at the end, I will do the post-match interview. And depending on where I am, I will sometimes make sure they're signing the tennis balls, which is a thing I did in Indian Wells last year. Normally, I don't do that. Somehow I ended up doing that last year and found that it was kind of like the hairstylist chair. You got to ask like random, like, where are you going to go for dinner tonight? You know, and just random questions that you have time to sort of ask when they're assigning the balls. Like I'm trying to remember another instance, but there were several times where I was like, this is kind of a fun time to, again, it's the relationship building. It's talking to them without a microphone, without a camera, which is helpful in the long run. So I was like, maybe I should facilitate the ball signing more often. Right. Add it to the job description, but I enjoyed it. So that is in general what the tennis MC job entails, whether it's, you know, on any court throughout the world.
And you definitely obviously are very involved with the coverage. This year, big storyline again is Novak Djokovic. Do you have any insight, you know, on if he's going to be there? We know that, you know, the decision is going to be made on Monday. We just wondered if you could give us just a little extra, if you have anything to kind of let fans know what's going on with that.
I wish I had. I know I was billed as the tennis insider. I have no information here.
On you get the tennis ball signed. That's when you get your insider.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. What juicy tea I can get for you during tennis ball signing this year. But one thing I will say, just sort of watching this all play out and knowing, at least from what I've read, that the tournaments, Indian Wells and Miami, are involved in some way in maybe trying to help facilitate him being able to play. The fact that that is happening, an exception is they're trying to make an exception for Novak on paper. That is what's happening. And there really isn't, again, I like to think I have my finger on the pulse, and there really is no major uproar pushback about that. I think speaks to the fact that we all feel like he should be able to play, or I shouldn't say we all, I don't want to speak for everyone. I think most people feel like at this point, just let the guy come in and play, because really on paper, if, you know, rewind a couple of years or a year and a couple of months, and you have a tournament possibly getting involved in a governmental matter, to make an exception for a professional athlete. A year and a couple months ago, that was disastrous. And obviously so many things have changed, you know, in the spring of 2023. I hope he can play. I don't have any info on whether or not that's going to happen. I hope it works out, though. I think at this point, no, especially knowing that it's going to be that it was extended from January in the first place, and that it's going to be fine for him to come into the States in April. I hope that they can make an adjustment for him. My guess, though, is that the rest of the field hopes that they don't make an exception for him.
I was just going to say, I wonder how the players feel about that, but it could be interesting. I know that you have to go shortly, so I know we asked you last year, we did a crowd live with you when you were at Indian Wells. We asked you to make some predictions.
Oh gosh.
That was kind of in the midst of the tournament, so I know that was a little bit easier, but maybe could you just give us, you know, players that you people should keep their eye out for and that they should really pay attention to for this year's Indian Wells on both sides?
On the men's side, hoping that Carlitos and that leg is fine and he can play. There's been no news that I've missed. I've been a little detached this week. I haven't missed any Carlitos withdrawal news, have I?
No.
Obviously, given the way that he is playing, clearly he didn't even need a warm up, just came right back out and picked up right where he left off. So man, that's so much fun to see. I would love to see him do great in Indian Wells. Taylor Fritz seems to be playing some ridiculously good tennis. I almost fear it's too good. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the semis and finals in Acapulco. Sometimes you want to have like a little bit of, where you're not coming in on the mountaintop, you're coming in, maybe on like that one plateau just below the mountaintop. So we'll see how that goes for Taylor. I would also say watch out for Cam Norrie, who's had success in Indian Wells before and has had a great start to his year as well. And also started off playing on clay, which I know Indian Wells, I think it's very easy to think of it as a fast, a place where things are playing quickly. It plays relatively slow from everything I understand. And so I think that, I don't know, maybe for Cam's game, coming from the clay to the hard, that won't be that tough of an adjustment.
I think that's why Medvedev maybe hasn't had great success at Indian Wells, right? He's not usually good on the clay, the slower surfaces, because I don't think he's made it past the fourth round.
He has not. I actually looked that up. I was like, I don't think the nail's a factor in Indian Wells. Maybe he'll surprise us. On the women's side, gosh, I mean, it's hard to bet against Iga, but I also think Barbora is coming, guys. I think Dubai was not. I don't know. I just feel like she's coming. I felt like that from the very beginning of the year. And she's one of those players who some players I worry about when they have a lot of success going into another big event, like people who do really great before the US Open. I always worry just a little bit for them. That's not a feeling I have with her. I just feel like she has an incredible ability to sort of separate herself from expectations, hype. She just truly believes she is better. I think, again, I don't want to speak for her, but I think she believes that she's better than anybody that she steps on the court against. And it does not matter if she's won the last, 15 matches she's played. I don't think that affects her in that way. And it'll be interesting to see how Iga rebounds from that final as well against Barbora.
Yeah, I like that. I like to watch her play. She's so fun.
So her game style is so fun. Her personality is fun. I'm fully on board the Barbora train for sure.
Yeah. Well, Blair, we want to thank you for joining us. We know you got to head out. But yeah, thanks for being on our podcast. And I'll be down at Indian Wells for 5 days. I'll be coming out to court 3 for sure for the party court. So
yeah,
amazing. Bring anything you think would be appropriate for a party. I'm not going to promote anything here, but
Okay. I like it. Well, I'm not credentialed. It's not like official working.
Well, there you go.
There you go. I'll be watching the party court from TV, so I'll be watching the party court.
Amazing. Well, guys, keep up the good work. Seriously, you're doing awesome things. So thanks for having me.